going sort of 24-hour news cycle that we've had now for probably the last 2 months, because it was a build up to elections, then it was the month of elections, now coming out of elections a month later. So it's been 3-4 months of consistently being on this hamster wheel of politics and elections and the discourse around it. And are you feeling a bit fatigued? Are you feeling a bit maybe worn out by all of the conversation and the talk? The argument is not whether or not it's important for us to be having these conversations. The argument is about its effects on our emotional and mental well-being. And that is the conversation. How are you feeling? Are you feeling fatigued out? We'd love to know from you. In terms of mindful techniques, what can we be using? So you sort of listed the triggers that speak to us being self-aware. And if you're listening to Christopher and you're thinking, well, hold on, Christopher is perhaps highlighting that, yeah, maybe this is starting to get to me. Then what kind of mindful techniques can we then sort of incorporate in order for us to manage all of this anxiety and stress and whatever fatigue that can be associated with where we are around this election fatigue?
Yeah, I think what causes a lot of anxiety for people is that you're watching something happen that you don't have a lot of control over. And that can be very stressful. Generally, if you think about an anxiety response, it's generally the reason it exists in us is to drive action. You know, if we feel anxious about a deadline, we're going to get the work done, for example. But in this case, you know, we're watching something happen that feels like we don't have any direct control over. So the anxiety becomes purposeless in a way. It doesn't really drive any kind of action within us, and we have nothing to do with that anxiety. And so I think in terms of those mindfulness practices, I think one almost has to embrace that it's not something that's in their control, you know, and that whatever effect it may have will take time. And so it's not something you need to engage with in the short term. You know, you can take a longer view. You can kind of wait for the dust to settle, so to speak. And so I think it's important that everyone allows themselves to feel what they feel. It's normal to feel anxious. It's a normal response. These are things that have big consequences for everyone in this country. And so I always encourage people not to suppress those feelings, not to drive them away, or certainly not to chastise yourself. You know, don't say, oh, I'm being stupid or I'm being silly or anything like that. But rather embrace that anxiety. Say, yeah, I am feeling anxious, and I think it's healthy for me to feel anxious, but also there's not anything that I can do with this anxiety. There's nothing that I can affect change in right now, unless you are an MP listening to this broadcast right now. You know, so there's nothing that you can really do to affect change. And so the healthiest thing for you to do may be just to take a step back from it and just say, let me just go on a news diet. Let me just put this away for a few days. Let me focus back on myself and my own life and the things in my life that I do have control over and the things that I do care about. And part of that is, of course, your mental health and doing things that make you feel happy, that make you feel calm. And so to engage in activities that will benefit you and reduce your anxiety rather than increase it.
You know, when you say that perhaps one must embrace that it's not within your control, I would figure even moving out of the news cycle, this might be an area where some folks, dependent on their personalities, stumble on. I know that I prefer to be in control. I prefer to be in control of my circumstances and my environment. And so someone like myself might struggle to put those parameters for the sense of, you know, mental clarity and well-being.
Absolutely, and I think that's why I say it's about narrowing your focus from that sort of macro political perspective to your own life and what you can do in your own life to feel more comfortable, to feel more secure. And I think that any political fallout, it takes time. And so you have time to wait for kind of the dust to settle and to take things as they come, but also to put whatever safeguards you feel you can in your own life, you know, depending on how you feel about the results, how you feel about what's happened. And so I guess to sort of narrow your focus back down to your own life, your own surroundings, your own families and support structures and things like that, and to sort of embrace those and to take action within those spheres that you do feel like you have more control over, which helps to give you back some of that sense of control.
Absolutely.
Rather than the political machinations of of the elite, you know.
Absolutely. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on. And 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you have something to share, an observation perhaps, or a sentiment around this conversation, based on your own personal interaction with this election season. Maybe you think it's been too drawn out now and you're ready to shut the door on this angle of conversation around it and move on to the next part of it, because then you feel that there's a sense of progress in what's going on and you're not kind of stuck in the same emotional state. Or you're one of those folks where it doesn't really affect you, because there are people who aren't really affected. They can consume the news 24/7, and it doesn't have any kind of emotional or mental effect on them whatsoever. We'd love to hear from you. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's take a quick pause here for Dineo Mutawung to come through with the headline news.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 1:30. Minister in the Presidency, Khumbuzo Ntshavheni, says government priorities are still based on the medium-term strategic framework, even under the government of national unity. Meanwhile, DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille has lambasted the ANC, saying it's not interested in sharing power. She says despite the ANC not winning an outright majority, they see themselves as in charge, and the state has withdrawn all the charges against television presenter and rapper Molemo Jub Marwahanye. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Definitely an interesting development in that case against rapper Jub. It's just gone 1:30 on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga on SAFM, leading the conversation. And our lines are open. We are in conversation with a clinical psychologist at Netcare Akiso Crescent Clinic. Christopher Kemp joins us now to talk around what could possibly be election and political season overload and how one can avoid mental burnout from consumption of political news and being engaged in this entire political drama for way too long. 086 000 2032, 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. In fact, let's go to WhatsApp.
Good afternoon, Bridget. There's nothing wrong with politics all the time. Our lives revolve around politics. So we need to know what is happening each and every minute. Thank you very much, Peter Maila Machava from Letswapa.
Good day, Bridget. For me, I wouldn't say I feel fatigued. No, because I need to know who's going to be in government, who they are, what their background is, and I'll be able to know what is there to expect from them. And especially since I'm an activist, I'll need to know what these people are about, how am I going to approach them and so on. And after all, I'm the one I voted. So I played a role in this whole, in everything, in having these people being in government for those that are, like, for example, party that I voted for. So I'll need to know exactly what is going on. I played a role. So there's no way that I'm going to say that I feel fatigued.
I can recognize your voice, Sammy. I recognize your voice. I was saying that you're a lot calmer on WhatsApp voice note. I also got a message that says, I'm not big on politics, but for the first time, I find myself listening to the news every day from 5 a.m. It's good to hear what's happening in my country as opposed to just carrying on with life and hoping for the best. Politics is actually exciting and an important part of South Africa. If possible, I actually plan to learn learn more and involve myself as well. But the bottom line is I keep seeing is that the problem with our politics, economy and functioning in the country is spirituality. If we want the best for everyone, then that should be logical to achieve if we dig down deep and realize that. Absolutely get you, Freeman, taking it one step further. So I guess the sentiment from what we're gathering, from WhatsApp thus far, Christopher, is that people want to stay engaged. And I think, that's sort of why I said earlier on that the crux of our conversation is not even around why it's important for us to be engaged in political conversation. I mean, we spend the entire year sort of driving South Africans to participate in politics and political discourse and the political system. But at the center of this conversation today with you is the recognizing that certain things can have an adverse effect on our psychological and mental state. And how do we then safeguard to make sure, yes, we're still engaged, yes, we're still participating in the conversation, but we quite frankly, are not losing our own minds whilst we're doing that.
Absolutely, and I think, I want to normalize this for people as well, and that it's quite a well-documented phenomenon. There's been a lot of studies in the past that do show generally as you approach elections, as you get closer to elections, symptoms of anxiety and depression do increase. It's a well-documented thing. What's interesting in our situation is that normally you see the same decline in depression and anxiety following the elections. And I think that generally that's because the outcome is decided and you can start to sort of make peace with it. It's not this big unknown that happens leading up to it. But what we're experiencing now, and I think really for the first time in a while in our country's history, where the outcome isn't really decided. Normally there's sort of a clear winner, there's clear oppositions, and everything is kind of established very shortly after the election results. But now we have these coalitions, these governments of national unities, and all these negotiations behind closed doors that we're not necessarily privy to. And so there's a lot of uncertainty. And normally that uncertainty is up until the results, and then the results are in and the uncertainty dissipates, and we start to feel less anxious. But we have this sort of extended election cycle that we're going through now, and I think that's contributing largely to this sort of increased anxiety and burnout, because we don't have that kind of letting go of that held breath, that kind of release of, okay, the elections are over, now I can come to terms with the results. The results are still really ongoing. Yeah.
How do we set healthy boundaries, around what we consume, even over and above just elections, just the things we consume on a daily? Even when we look at social media and our addiction, you open your eyes and the first thing you do in the morning, you're feeling around the side table of the bed to get your phone so you can open up Facebook and Twitter and everything else.
Absolutely, and I think it comes down to whether or not it's something that benefits you or you feel like it is having a negative impact, and that's obviously different for everyone. You've had people on WhatsApp now say that they love it, it's exciting, they enjoy it, it sort of stimulates them, they like knowing what's going on, and I think the social aspect is a big part of it. Everyone always jokes about don't talk about politics, with friends or family, because it leads to arguments around the dinner table, and so it is this very divisive, very sort of emotionally charged topic of conversation. And I think a lot of the burnout is engaging on social media. People are very opinionated on social media, and there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguing. And I feel like that can actually burn you out a lot faster than the news cycles can, because you're sort of engaged in these debates with strangers, and you're getting emotional, you're getting upset, everyone's sort of getting quite charged. And so I think that is definitely something that can be worth taking a step back from, especially if you feel like it's negatively impacting your mood.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to WhatsApp and see what else is on your mind.
Good afternoon, Bridget. This is Mutlatsi from Pretoria. I agree with Peter. We must know everything starting from now until the end of this 5-year term. Ramaphosa and the crew, because when we vote, we must be well informed. I think everybody should be on radio, actually. The people that are sitting in street corners and stuff, they should just get a listen and know what's happening around them, about them, for them.
Good afternoon, Bridge. For me, I can take politics all day long. I wouldn't mind. In fact, I don't mind. But the only time where I'm fed up, I don't want to be associated with SAFM, is during weekends. Because I do listen to good music, but I can't listen to music all day. So the weekend schedule is just not for me. But during the course of weekdays, no, it's okay. Because there's a lot of mix. I mean, I know what to expect to your show. I know what happens during Stephen Okota's show. Keith next, Sakina, you come next, Ashraf. But your slots alone, I think it's a little bit different than the ones that I've just mentioned. So for me, well, politics I don't mind, but weekend music, no.
Hi, Bridget. Richard from Durban here. We need to know what's going on because these are employees. They are the staff of the citizens of South Africa. They are the servants of the public. When you have staff and dependents, you need to know what they're doing. Otherwise, there's zero productivity. People can hide behind the garden shed and smoke and do what they like with the noises that they make. But the reality is, as employees and of the nation and as the staff of the business of South Africa, they have to report to the people of the country meticulously. Thank you.
I mean, I chuckled in between the voice notes. So Matlati and Richard both saying, definitely, we need to stay informed. We need to know. So I guess they have no sense of fatigue from the ongoing conversations. And then nestled in between there, I didn't catch his name. You know, he's saying, He's good. He's good. He ended up giving us a little review of the station to say he's good with us Monday to Friday because we give him a nice balance of all these news and everything else. And then I guess I'm the little breath of fresh air when he needs a break from the hard news. But he can't do with the music. No time off. No time off for him. He wants to be in there 24/7. Christopher, as your parting shot on this conversation, a piece of advice?
I think a lot of your listeners who've sort of called in or left notes have said that they feel a sense of responsibility to know what's going on. And I totally agree with that. I just think that it's okay to prioritize your own mental health first. So if it is becoming too much for you, don't feel like it's kind of your civic duty to stay engaged all the time. It's okay to take a step back and say, look, I'm going to focus on myself for now, and I'll plug back in when I'm ready. You know, you can be politically active and politically aware without following every single day and every single piece of news. Like I say, you can wait for the dust to settle. So look after yourself, put yourself first. It's hard times for everyone, and it's okay to put your mental health first and put your own happiness first.
Absolutely. Christopher Kemp, thank you for the time. Christopher is a clinical psychologist at Netcare's Akiso Crescent Clinic. And as you heard, it's okay to prioritize your own mental health. It doesn't mean that you are not an active citizen who's fully engaged and participating, but a little time to step away from time to time, even if it's a day or maybe 2 days, just to step away from it all and de-stress and decompress your own mind. Things do change fast, particularly in the political landscape, but politics, just like a good soapy and a good drama, you can always catch up on the next episode. You're not really missing much. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll be right back and get into stages, pages, screens and more.
Here he comes. Hello, guy. You're so dramatic. Hey, bro, it's not me. It's the extra styling kit. The leather seats with the red finish. It's the tow bar, all coming standard with my red Isuzu badge. Wow, now that is extra.
Why be standard when you can get the all-new Isuzu D-Max X Rider from just 8,742 Rand. Prime less 3.5%, 0% deposit, 40% balloon, and 72 months to pay. Get yours today. Finance is subject to approval. Isuzu Finance, a product of West Bank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
In South Africa, 1 in 5 children under the age of 13 is overweight or obese. Sign a petition to demand strong warning labels on unhealthy packaged food. And don't forget to catch the next episode of Chew on This at healer.org on Thursday, 27 June from 3 p.m. Young people tell us how big food companies are feeding them lies.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Stages, pages, screens, and more with Bridget Masinga.
As we get into it, the Red Hill Arts Festival returns for its 6th year, and it's set to dazzle from the 25th until the 28th of July at the Red Hill School right here in Morningside in Johannesburg. And we've got Joseph Jurassi, Executive Head at Red Hill School and Festival Director, joining us. How are you doing this afternoon, Joseph?
I'm doing really, really well. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. So 6 years of the festival. What has made the Red Hill Arts Festival just stand the test of time and also keep attracting broader audiences to come through and support?
I think it's very much around the fact that, in Johannesburg, we just don't have festivals anymore that bring all of the arts together. So unfortunately, fortunately for the Eastern Cape, the national festival is, in the Eastern Cape, and in KZN, they've got the Hilton Festival. So, the Orange Free State has got 1 or 2 festivals as well. But Johannesburg doesn't have its own festival where you can bring together the arts, markets, dance, theatre groups, music. And I think we kind of cornered that market when we said, okay, on the Red Hill campus, we're going to have 4 days of bringing you the best theatre, the best music acts, the best dance acts, the best vendors, in one place for 4 days on a very safe and secure campus. And it's just a wonderful place for basically you can also bring your entire family.
Yeah.
Because we've got things for the little kids. We've got 4 or 5 magical youth theatre productions, and then we go all the way through to the teenagers who can come and see the likes of Watershed and Jessie Clegg and Lady Zamar and Zavani. And then we have for the older people that want to come and see some of the shows that have been staged in Johannesburg, but maybe they haven't got to see. Well, all of them come to the festival, and you can have your absolute pick of entertainment. So I think it's just South Africans, Johannesburg, people in Johannesburg, just wanting a community festival that they can get together and enjoy.
Yeah. And I mean, from just the little bit that you've mentioned already, the festival does host leading South African entertainers: Watershed, Mzansi Youth Choir, Lady Zamar, Jessie Clegg, Zolani Mahola, and the list goes on, which already speaks volumes about how credible this festival is. It's not just a school festival, but in its own right, it is a very important part of the arts and culture annual calendar.
Absolutely. I think where people sometimes get confused when they see a school festival, they think it's going to be school bands and school house plays, from that particular school. This is not that. Red Hill only hosts the festival. So we do all the setups and we use our venues, etc. But 90% of what happens at the festival is all professional. It's professional acts, professional performances, professional productions that come onto our stages. We changed the whole of our school. We're just very lucky that we've got a very, very, well-coordinated, pretty school, and it allows for all the different venues. We've got our theaters, we've got our halls, we've got our film studios. So we've got lots of venues. And why we attract so many good productions is that all of the productions that come to us don't pay anything to actually perform. So the other part of Red Fest is not just to bring community together, but it's really to give back to the arts. Myself, as a lover of the arts, we try and get young and aspiring performers who can't afford, venues in Johannesburg to come here, and they get the venue, they get the technicians, they get the publicity, all for free, and they take 50% at the door. So it's really about supporting young and up-and-coming artists, and also giving platforms to those that are, have the experience, which obviously give the festival its kudos, and it allows it to be a festival that people want to come to.
Yeah. In our final moments, we've spoke about the music offering this year. Perhaps the highlight of this year's theatre lineup?
Oh, it's such a difficult one, because I'm going to get some of the producers getting very angry with me that I haven't highlighted their show. But a standout for me is Vincent. It tells the story of Vincent van Gogh, but it tells it through modern day music. It's an absolute highlight for me. But there's such a variety of productions, that you could be here all day and all night, and you'd still have productions to go and see. So check out the full lineup is on www.redfest.co.za. It's a great website where you can get in, you can see every production, you can go on, it'll tell you what the production is about, and if you click on, it'll take you right through to Ticket Pro, and you can book your tickets. And although there is an entrance fee, depending on what day you're coming to be on campus, if you have purchased a ticket, or Ticket Pro, and you come with a ticket, you don't have to pay an entrance fee. Then you can just come on, and you get to see the shows without having to pay an entrance.
Lovely. Joseph, we will definitely see you there. That was Joseph Gerasi, who's the executive head at Red Hill School and, of course, the festival director. www.redfest.co.za is where you can go for the full itinerary of what's on the schedule by way of the theatre productions, as well as the activities and the musical offering. And then, of course, there's also a click-through tab for you to go into Ticket Pro and procure your tickets for yourself and your family and friends. And if, as you heard, as a side note there, if you did get your ticket from Ticket Pro, then you don't pay the entrance fee to get on campus the day that you come. But if you didn't get your ticket from Ticket Pro, then you pay at the school the entrance fee for you to come and enjoy the festivities. 25th until the 28th of July at the Red Hill School in Morningside, Johannesburg.
Friends, and welcome to Nali Bali. How do you feel about working as a team? Well, teamwork is a critical skill that every child should learn. It is essential for success in many aspects of life, including schoolwork and personal relationships. Teamwork is the process of working together as a team to achieve a common goal. It involves cooperation, communication, and collaboration between team members. Working together with other children as a team helps you improve communication skills, enhanced problem-solving abilities, and increased self-esteem. It also helps you develop social skills and learn to work with others, which will be valuable in your future careers. Teamwork is an important skill for us to learn, and there's so many ways to help develop it, whether through games, projects, or volunteering. Working together helps us as children build valuable skills that will serve us well throughout our lives. Let's listen to today's story called The Lesson of the Seed, written by Kai Tuomi. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and... In a cracked, dry land where nothing grew, there was a broken-down old hut, which was home to 3 highly competitive brothers. Each brother wanted to be better than his sibling in everything. When the brothers played games like running or tossing pebbles or lifting stones over their heads, they played to win. They would argue loudly about who really won, even when it was clear who the winner was. One day, the eldest brother said,
"I'd like to grow a tree, then we could have some cool shade."
"Well, I'd like to grow a tree, then we can have some fruit."
The second eldest replied,
"Actually, I'd like to grow a tree so that we can get some firewood,"
said the youngest brother. There was a problem though. None of the brothers knew how to grow trees, but fortunately, they knew someone or something who did.
"Let's ask that wild thing that lives in a cave how to grow a tree. I'm sure it will know."
So they ran off across the dusty dry land, arguing all the while on who thought of the wild thing first. Outside the cave, beautiful wildflowers grew, purple, red, and yellow.
"Wait here, I'll go first,"
said the eldest brother, pushing ahead of the other 2, who both tried to pull him back.
"Stop it!"
boomed a loud voice.
"If you want my help, come inside quietly, one at a time."
The eldest brother grinned as he pushed his way ahead of the other 2 and entered the cave. The wild thing was huge, with an elephant's trunk and yellow eyes like a hyena. It had feathers all over its body and a long curly tail like a snake. It was stirring a pot of magic that puffed thick green smoke in the air.
"Oh, great wild thing,"
said the eldest brother.
"I want to grow a tree. Can you help me, please?"
The wild thing reached into its feathery pocket and pulled out something small.
"This is a seed of a tree. Seeds need sunshine to grow."
Before the wild thing could finish talking, the eldest brother snatched the seed from its hand.
"Okay, thank you, bye,"
he said, running off before the wild thing could say another word.
"Okay, now I'll be the first brother to grow a tree."
"Well, I guess so, but I guess I'll just need to tell the next brother what else the seed needs to grow."
The wild thing said to itself. Once he was gone, the second eldest brother entered the cave when he saw the eldest one come out running. He quickly asked the wild thing the same question. Again, the wild thing held out a seed, but this time it said,
"Seeds need water to grow and..." "Okay, thanks, bye,"
the second brother said, taking the seed and running off before he heard what else the seed needed to grow. The wild thing shook its head in disbelief. Then the youngest brother came rushing in loudly. Again, the wild thing held out a seed, but this time it said,
"Seeds need soil to..."
The third brother was gone before he heard what else the seeds needs to grow. Back at their hut, each brother tried to grow the seed that the wild thing had given him. The eldest put his seed on top of a flat stone in the bright sun. The second took his to the valley and tossed it into a tiny stream of water. It sank to the bottom out of sight. The third dug a deep big hole for the seed, then covered it back with the soil. Time passed, but nothing happened. So the three brothers ran back to the Wild Thing's cave. They rushed inside together.
Hey, Wild Thing!
These seeds you gave us.
What is this? What kind of seeds are these? Give us some new ones.
It's been so long.
They shouted crossly. The Wild Thing glared at them with his angry hyena eyes.
My seeds were fine. Each of you would have a strong, healthy tree, but you three were too busy trying to win and too angry with each other to listen properly,
said the Wild Thing, before repeating the ways to grow the seeds.
Okay, here. I have only one seed left, so listen carefully. This is the lesson of the seed. You must work together if you want it to grow.
Work together?
What do you mean? There's no way we're doing
that's
that.
Not happening
Then who will win?
The brothers asked crossly.
All of you,
said the Wild Thing, throwing more magic powder into its pot. Back at the hut, and after much fighting, the three brothers finally agreed to work together. They found a sunny pot and put the seed into the earth and gave it water. And they waited. Guys, you won't believe it. This time, a tree grew. It grew tall with branches for firewood and big green leaves for shade and ripe yellow fruits to eat. Although the brothers still argued with each other until they were old and grey, they never forgot the lesson of the seed. Work together. And so we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called The Lesson of the Seed, written by Kai Tuomi. Did you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages, as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplements with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
Top stories. Nchabeni outlines government's priorities and state withdraws charges against Jub Jub. With the news, I am Dino Motaung. Good afternoon. Minister in the presidency, Khumbudzo Nchabeni, says government priorities are still based on the medium-term strategic framework, even under the Government of National Unity. Nchabeni has been briefing the media in Cape Town on the Government of National Unity following the swearing-in ceremony of the National Executive. Yesterday, 76 members of the cabinet were sworn in for the 7th administration. Nchabeni has outlined government's priorities and a program of action as articulated in the statement of intent.
The government's priorities and program of action is articulated in the medium-term strategic framework, what we colloquially call the MTSF, which is guided by the election manifesto of the governing party. In this case of the GNU, it will be governing parties. And the choice of priorities, because there will be multiple priorities in the manifestos of the parties or the governing party or the governing parties in our instance, is guided by their alignment to the attainment of the goals of the National Development Plan of Vision 2030 as adopted by Parliament in 2012.
Meanwhile, DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille has lambasted the ANC, saying it's not interested in sharing power. She says despite the ANC not winning an outright majority, they see themselves as in charge. Coalition talks between the DA and the ANC broke down yesterday, and the DA withdrew and failed to form part of the executive of the Gauteng government of provincial unity. Zille says the reason talks collapsed is because the ANC was negotiating in bad faith.
Not only is it unfair and unreasonable, but it doesn't reflect the will of the voters. And the ANC was trying to pull the wool over our eyes the whole time. And we uncovered that, and we said we cannot proceed without good faith. And we cannot proceed if you're going to manipulate and lie to us like this. Their initial offer of 3 seats was based on the fact that they wanted to keep 7 plus the Premier. That would have given them 8 to 3. They wanted the DA to take 3 meaningless portfolios. They wouldn't even tell us what those portfolios were.
In other news, the state has withdrawn all the charges against television presenter and rapper Molemo Jubjub Marwahanye. Marwahanye was facing charges of rape, attempted murder and assault involving 4 complainants for the alleged incidents between 2006 to 2010. Marwahanye pleaded not guilty to all the charges against him before the Johannesburg Magistrates Court. He was out on bail. NPA spokesperson Pindi Mjonondwane says the evidence presented was not substantial.
The decision follows the careful consideration of the information that was made available to the prosecution through representations that were submitted by the defense, as well as the prosecutor's report and the perusal of the evidence in the case docket. As the NPA, we are of the view that there are no prospects of a successful prosecution, and the only sensible thing to do was to withdraw the charges against Marwahanye.
Moving to the Western Cape, a 19-year-old has been arrested for allegedly assaulting his grandmother at her home in Kraaifontein, Cape Town. Police spokesperson Andre Trout says officers learned of a video that was circulating on social media of the assault. Trout says investigations show that the incident occurred last month at the victim's home. He says the victim declined to give a statement and the family refused police assistance. He says the suspect will appear in Blue Downs Magistrates Court once charged.
But it is said that the family took the matter in their own hands and refused police assistance. The severity of the matter was realized when a video of the incident was circulating on the internet, and on this basis SAPS intervened and opened up the case docket on behalf of the victim. Crimes against women and children are on top of the SAPS's priority list, and we will not be turning a blind eye to any form of violence in this regard.
Lastly, the White House and Venezuela have agreed to work together to improve relations as President Nicolas Maduro prepares for elections. He's been in power since 2013 and is seeking a 3rd term. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha reports.
The White House said representatives discussed a range of issues during an online meeting, including Washington's demands for a competitive and inclusive vote in 3 weeks' time. The meeting took many by surprise. In April, the U.S. had reimposed sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector in protest at the government's handling of the electoral process. The leading opposition candidate, Maria Corina Machado, was banned from running for alleged financial irregularities, which she denies. Her replacement, Edmundo González, is leading most opinion polls. But the opposition fears the government will intervene in the process to secure the re-election of Mr. Maduro.
Recapping the top story this hour, Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, says government priorities are still based on the medium-term strategic framework, even under the government of national unity. Headlines at 2:30 for SFM News. I am Dino Mutaung.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
It's Truck Month at Ford, and that means one thing. You save big when you upgrade to a 4x4. For a limited time only, get a Ford Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month. Visit your nearest Ford dealer to get the best deal on a Ranger 4x4 from only $8,599 per month with free 4x4 driver training. TNCs apply.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
lot of people actually don't know that she's got quite a long sort of life as an activist. She was actually recruited by the Black Panthers when she was just a kid. And she was selling what was called the Panther paper on the corner, as she describes it, barefoot and in jeans. And she's had a long and colorful life, at some point, even taking her activism to the next level, handling guns and getting really at the front of the anti-racism movement at the time. And she's battled all things from addiction to like most women who came up in the music industry at that particular time, also having to deal with dodgy managers who really put her life on the risk and shortchanged her, and having to rise to the party and be her own activist, her own protector, her own advocate in most circumstances. This is Shaka Khan with Ain't Nobody. The cool thing about Shaka Khan is, I think as much as she is aware of her rock star status, she hasn't fully bought into it, because then she also, in an article that she had with The Guardian, she talks around how she's not fully aware of her influence as a musician, because for her, she kind of checks out of her music and cocoons herself within her home, her family, her loved ones. And so she doesn't fully have a full grasp as to what it is to be Shaka Khan and be this rock star influence on so many people. I love her to bits and pieces. That is how we entered the second hour of the show. And we are catching up with Justin Hatting now, who is a senior legal advisor at Strategy Labour. And of course, in a landmark ruling, South Africa's Constitutional Court has reinforced the principle that trade unions must adhere strictly to their constitutional mandates. And we wanted to unpack this and other matters around trade unions with Justin, who obviously knows far better than I do around this context. And we're asking you, do you belong to any kind of a union, trade union? And what has been your experience with them in regards to their fulfillment of their mandate? And are you happy with how they represent you, with how they represent you in your respective sector or place of employment? You can share anonymously if you want on 061-410-4107. That's our WhatsApp line. Or you can give us a call on 086-000-2032. Justin, good afternoon to you. How are you?
Very well, and yourself, Bridget. Thanks for having me this afternoon.
I'm great, thank you. And I guess before we get to understanding what was this Constitutional Court ruling, let's perhaps double back to the actual case. If you can walk us through some of the merits of this case as you understand them, from what I know involving the AFGRI Animal Feeds and the National Union of Metal Workers South Africa, NUMSA.
Sure, absolutely. So, in essence, what happened in this matter was AFGRI Animal Feeds had dismissed several employees back in December 2017 for participating in an unprotected strike, and this was as a result of AFGRI's refusal to grant NUMSA organizational rights within their workplace. And the reason why AFGRI didn't want to allow this was because they stated that NUMSA's constitution actually restricted membership to the metal industry and its allied industries, and not in the animal feed industry. So obviously they went on strike, the employees were then dismissed, and the Labour Court initially upheld the argument that was put forward by AFGRI and stated, well, look, that's correct, your scope doesn't allow you to organize in this industry, and you can't represent these employees. Obviously, then went on to the Labour Appeal Court, where the Labour Appeal Court found that made inroads into the right to freedom of association that is given in the Labour Relations Act, and they overturned that. And then ultimately it went to the Constitutional Court, which then reinstated the Labour Court's initial ruling. And it interpreted, amongst other things, sections 161 and 200 of the Labour Relations Act, and said, we need to understand one thing. A trade union is a voluntary association. One of the things that is expected of a trade union is to have a constitution in place which says who can be members in which industries it organizes, and it must be bound by that. And it found that NUMSA wasn't entitled to, number one, organize within that industry, and then secondly, represent employees. They cannot create a class of membership outside its constitutional scope.
From my lame understanding of what you just said, does this speak to trade unions then being restricted from finding expressions within certain areas if it's not already contained within the understanding of where they operate? So is there no leeway for them to expand into a different kind of sector, whether temporarily or permanently?
Yeah, so when we look at the Constitutional Court's decision, it basically says that. It says you have limited yourself in terms of your own constitution to these industries, and you cannot go outside of that. It's well established. So you've limited yourself, and for you then to be able to organize in industries that you traditionally don't, it would then have to only be in terms of an amendment to that scope and that constitution at a later stage.
Oh, I see. All right. And of course, our lines are open on 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. If you have a perspective on this, or you belong perhaps to a union or have belonged to a union, what has been your experience with them regards to their fulfillment of their mandate? And of course, representation of yourself as an employee in whatever respective field. And talk to us about the practical implications of the ruling for other trade unions in South Africa, and what does this mean for trade unions just moving forward in understanding their role and their place within industry?
Yes, absolutely. So ultimately what happens is a trade union needs to seriously look at what its constitutional scope says. If it says you can only organize in this industry, it would then be prudent for them to then only organize in that industry, because what could possibly happen now is where a trade union has a sort of presence in an industry where they are not entitled to organize in terms of their constitution, it means then employers could possibly then withdraw any organizational rights that have been extended to them. And then that leaves those members in the cold, and then they won't be able to get the benefits of being a member of a trade union. So that is one particular problem that could then arise. Also, for employers, what they would then need to do is when a new union does then come into their space or their sphere, they would need to then embark on a verification meeting. They would need to ask, okay, can we see a copy of your registration? Can we see your constitution? And is it feasible for you to be here? Are you allowed to organize in our workplace? Before everyone then gets into the situation where a couple of years down the line, we find out, okay, well, you're not actually entitled to be here, and then that creates just mass confusion and unhappiness across the board.
And I presume this speaks to a legal precedent that has been set and the influence on future interpretations of labor laws in South Africa, or not?
No, it definitely does. I mean, this isn't the first time that the Constitutional Court has had occasion to deal with a matter like this. Previous to this one, there was the matter of Lufil versus NUMSA, which was also the Constitutional Court, and it's once again said a trade union cannot disregard its own defined scope. And that really had more to do with the organizational rights. And then there seemed to be an interpretation that said, well, it says you can't organize within the workplace in terms of having access, deduction of membership fees and shop steward representation or other union activities, but you can still represent an employee at, say, for instance, a disciplinary hearing or at the CCMA. But now the Constitutional Court has clarified that initial position and has said it extends to absolutely all rights that a union is entitled to then exercise within a particular industry.
Oh, I see. Okay, so now, as you say, all rights, meaning that now they can't be selective about how they represent or participate.
Absolutely, and I think that is the main crux of what the Constitutional Court said in the recent Africa Feeds matter. It said you cannot create a special class of membership that is outside your scope.
Mm.
And I mean, it's a requirement in terms of the LRA. A union must have a constitution in order to be registered, and you're bound by that constitution. I mean, you can't set rules for yourself and then disregard those at a later date.
And Justin, help me understand also, just thinking about if already a trade union's constitution spells out the parameters of the representation and operation, is it then how feasible or how likely would it be for a union to then maybe look at amending their scope of operation?
So that would obviously depend once again on the contents of its constitution. They would have to then have a special motion at an AGM. They would have to have a quorum, and then they'd have to then vote on that resolution to be able to amend. And once they've amended it and they've made provision for other industries, then it's very likely then that they would be able to organize within that space.
All right, makes sense. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line if you'd like to weigh in on this particular conversation. Perhaps you yourself are within a sector or industry that has union representation, and you've had experience with unions. And what has that experience been for you? Have you found that they fulfilled their mandate and they've represented you well as an employee or as a collective, or do you feel perhaps there's room for better better engagement, or even if there's room, we can even extend this. Do you think there's room that for trade unions to still be relevant in 2024? I don't know. 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's go to, is it Baju?
Yes.
How are you, brother?
I'm good, and you?
I'm great. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon. Yeah, one is trade unions will remain a crucial part, will remain as the crucial institutions or organizations in our country. Just that we normally what we refer to as fish and chips unions that mess up relationships between employers and organizations, and therefore leads to these unsustainable work environments and unhealthy relationships. So yeah, Bridget, I wanted to say I work for a trade union myself, and I'm a functionary of a trade union. Trade unions are normally what we call worker controlled. They are controlled by workers. Someone who works in I'll make an example. A president of Sakau, a retail union, works at Pick and Pay. The deputy president works at ShopRite. So these organizations are worker controlled, and us as functionaries of the union execute what members or the real owners of trade unions want us to do. So we do not have much say. Everything is emboldened, or everything is in the powers of workers as functionaries. So I think people must stop confusing these two and say trade unions thinking that it's us, the functionaries, whereas trade unions, it's normally employees that own the unions.
I got you. Thank you, Baju. Sammy in Limpopo, how are you?
Good morning, Bridget. Just a quick one before I ask my question. I just want to ask you a question when you say unions, are they still relevant?
Angazi ngiyabuza kaloku. I don't work in a space that's unionized, so that's why I'm asking.
They are losing their relevance because in 2019, trade union membership was standing at 26.3%.
Okay.
In 2022, that percentage has climbed down, has taken a nosedive to 23.4%. So they are losing their relevance.
Okay.
But to your guest, I want to ask this question: does that constitutional law, like constitutional court ruling, means that like a union cannot operate in multiple industries? Like, for example, if my union was South African Retail and Allied Workers Union, does it mean that it cannot operate in the retail and farming, maybe in manufacturing? Does it have to stick to a specific industry.
All right, thank you, Sammy. That was Sammy. Sammy, you listen on the phone, eh? Justin will respond to you on the phone. Justin, before we go, we've got a few minutes before we head into the headline news. But I guess just to re-emphasize that point, Sammy also just wanting clarity about the unions being able to operate in multiple industries.
Yeah. So ultimately, that's exactly what the Constitutional Court's decision says. It says if your scope says you can only operate in retail, then you can't then go and operate in, for instance, agriculture. So it's very clear. It says, you are limited by your scope. And that's why it's very important for members to then see, okay, well, if I'm going to join this union, is it relevant to my industry? And then they'll make sure that they're not going to run into any problems down the road. So, that's ultimately what it comes down to. If you are not entitled to operate in agriculture and you're a retail union, that's exactly what it says.
And I wonder just your perspective on also the other point being made about unions, and Sammy cited some numbers there that suggest, the inclination for folks to join unions is declining.
Yeah, so look, I think it's absolutely a reality is that union membership is declining. However, in terms of relevance, I think, there would always be a space for unions as long as they are then going to obviously try and build relationships with employers and actually try and improve, the engagements between the parties. But you do, unfortunately, sometimes get unions that are sort of very militant and won't negotiate in good faith. They won't negotiate in good faith and actually then create a difficult relationship. So I think unions definitely do have their place, but then they also have a responsibility to engage responsibly and actually serve the interests of their members.
Absolutely. 086 000 2032 is our live in-studio number. And of course, you can also send us a WhatsApp on 061 410 4107. That is our WhatsApp line. If you have a perspective on this, whether it's on this landmark ruling by the South African Constitutional Court that has reinforced the principle that trade unions must adhere strictly to their constitutional mandate, i.e. meaning that they have to operate within the scope of what's been defined in their constitution and can't veer off that, or you are a member of a trade union or you've been a member of a trade union and you can share your perspective from a personal note, your experience, you are more than welcome to do so. Let's take a quick pause here. Dineo Mutawung is standing by with the headline news.
Good afternoon. In the headlines, Eastern Cape Police have arrested 8 suspects in connection with a 2-day kidnapping ordeal at Lusikisiki in the Eastern Cape. In other news, Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni says government priorities are still based on the medium-term strategic framework, even under the Government of National Unity. And the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality in the Eastern Cape has urged residents to be vigilant amid the discovery of the short-hole borer beetle in the city, which destroys various types of trees. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, I'm Anonymous. I'm here in Pietermaritzburg. I'm not happy about this union for the workers. I have been working more than 12 years as a security officer here at Msunduzi Municipality on the private company. they don't look at us, but we want an insourcing. We want the municipality to take us to working for municipality. But this union, they don't care about the security officers here at Msunduze Municipality. I thank you.
Good afternoon, Sister Bridget. This is President Shaka here in Free State. Sister Bridget, I don't belong to any union because I see it as a waste of time, because these big companies, they actually have savings. The money that they are robbing you, they save it for times like that. They will use their monies to defend themselves. Even the labor department has got no chance. These guys have got millions. You run out of money to go to the court, and then you will lose the case.
Hi, Bridget and your guest. Just a question. What would be a reason for a person who's just gained employment, any reason at all, for them to join a union? Thanks, Richard.
Yes, FM. Yes, people of the South, I have been a member of a union for a very long time. Unfortunately, I don't wish to be known, but I know that the union concerned would know itself that I'm professionally a teacher who has had close to 6 years, in fact 5 years, without being placed after a school in which I worked was closed. But now the union representative who was representing me by then failed me.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
All right, we are in conversation with Justin Hatting, who's a senior legal advisor at Strategy Labour. And we entered this conversation by way of that landmark ruling by the Constitutional Court that reinforced that trade unions must adhere strictly to their constitutional mandate and their outlined scope. But of course, we've opened up the door for you to share your perspective. If you've been a union member, maybe you were even a trade unionist leader yourself at some point in time, or do you think that unions are still relevant and find expression that betters the lives and experiences of their members? 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. And the question that was placed on the table there on WhatsApp, Justin, was, whether or not if you are a newly employed person, joining a union would be to your benefit. He says, what would be the point if you're newly employed to join a union?
Yeah, so look, ultimately what happens is when a employee joins a union, as I said, they're exercising their right to freedom of association, and also they would then feel that there's a need that they have that would be fulfilled by that union. So in terms of making sure that, their rights are given effect to, that their working conditions are up to scratch and are in line with legislation. So there could be a whole myriad of reasons why an employee would then join. I know a lot of unions also provide benefits in terms of that membership. So you would have things like funeral benefits, possibly even, education, whatever it might be. So it's not only about representation, but there are other benefits that are attached to it. And then sometimes you would get into a workplace where there's what they call a closed shop agreement. So there is a union that is the majority union, and they basically have an agreement with the employer that every employee then, when they become an employee of the company, must also be a member of that union. So there are many reasons as to why that could happen.
Yeah. We've got Edwin in Polokwane. How are you?
Good, how are you, ma'am?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I have got a question for your...
Yes, sir. He's listening.
There. Justin, how are you?
He's listening. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is that does he think it's fair for trade unions to have what you call a general scope? And if the answer is no, are they going to take such unions to task? Thank you.
Wait, sorry. Let me get the question again, Edwin.
Does he think is it fair for trade unions to have a general scope, like the constitution says we organize generally.
Okay.
Each and every worker. And if the answer is no from him, are they going to take such unions to task?
Okay, got you. Thank you so much, Edwin. Justin, over to you.
Sure. So I think that's quite an interesting question. I mean, there are a number of unions and even employers' organizations that have a general scope, and ultimately, I think if that is what their scope says, then it's 100% fair, and then they should be able to then organize wherever they please. So I don't believe that they would be taken to task, but I think also the reasoning behind obviously then limiting your scope and specializing is because that then allows you to engage effectively within the industry, because if you are a retail union or a metalworking union, then you understand the nuances of that industry, and you'd be able to then be more effective in it. Whereas a general union that doesn't have experience in a particular field of industry might actually end up, doing more harm than good, possibly, because they don't understand the industry.
I mean, hopefully you guys are getting the gist of this. I'm just, sorry, Justin, I'm just trying to cast my eyes on our WhatsApp lines as well, because we've got some written questions. We do always encourage you to send through a voice note. In fact, it's even quicker to send us a voice note than to type out your question or your comment to us. On 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's go to WhatsApp.
Good afternoon, this is Bridget.
Hi, Bridget. Bridget and the gentleman there. I've got only one question. So why this union, they lose cases, particularly in arbitration cases? They lose most of the cases. Why? Even though the merits is there, the jurisdiction is there, there's no loopholes. So why they lose the case? Thank you.
And over to you on that one.
Sure. So when it comes to a matter that goes to arbitration, Bridget, it's only as good as the facts and the evidence that you have to hand. And ultimately, sometimes even, you could have a matter that on paper is great, but it also comes down to, your preparation. If your representative is not prepared, they don't know the facts, and, they don't engage with it properly, they could end up doing damage to it. Also, it comes down to witnesses sometimes as well. Sometimes witnesses crumble on the stand, or they're not credible, and they do more damage than good to your matter. And sometimes it also just comes down to the person hearing it, because everything, it might be in your eyes a absolute sitter, but it's 50-50 in the grand scheme of things. And arbitrators are only human, and they will make a decision based on their own views and feelings at the time as well. So there's so many factors that actually come into play. So nothing is ever really a certainty.
Absolutely. Let's try and sneak in one more as we wrap it up.
Good afternoon, Bridget. It's Bo here in Durban. I believe that the trade unions are no longer for employees. It's all about the subscription that they will deduct from the employee's salary to keep the union going, or whatever that they do with the money, because really it's not working in South Africa. Yes, I agree with your guest there that they still have a role to play in the industry in this country, but to be quite frankly and honestly, there is some serious improvement that they need to do in order to be valued and be seen as they used to be before. Thank you.
And I think as we wrap it up on Spore's note, Justin is making an observation that says perhaps unions are no longer working. But can we say that in general from a South African context?
Look, I definitely think some persons or organizers in certain unions are really more worried about chasing numbers in order to bring in subscriptions, and they're more worried about chasing the subscription. But ultimately, I don't think we can paint all unions with that brush. There are some that are doing absolutely fantastic work. They have very competent officials, and they are giving value for money. So I think where there is space for improvement, it definitely needs to take place. But on the whole, I think there are many unions that are actually discharging their duties as well.
Justin Hatting, thank you so much for the time. That was Justin, Senior Legal Advisor at Strategy Labour, walking us through this landmark Constitutional Court ruling, and of course just broadly having an overview on perhaps the space that unions occupy in SA. It's just gone 22 or 3 o'clock, and of course Ashraf is coming through to let us know what's coming up on the National Pulse today, and then we'll come back and wrap it up on a feel-good note to our earlier conversation about diversifying our content consumption every single day. And this is the show that aims to do that for you Monday to Friday. So let's take a quick pause here.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Right? Year-end fatigue in between the spaces. The spaces in between is what I like to call them. We talk about real-life things. Ashraf is coming through, and of course, the National Pulse.
Yeah, so first of all, day 10. This is personal. Day 10
Yes.
without a shower. Now, I'm clean. I've had a bucket shower. Just day 10 without a shower. I thought I'll just tell you that.
Are the JoJo tanks readily available, though, in your area?
Well, I think they are, but it's clearly not enough. So clearly that's a issue, right? Besides that, we'll talk to two ministers today. The Minister of Land Reform, that of course is the PAC Minister. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll talk to the Minister of Basic Education as well, coming up. There's a UK election today, so there's a fascinating piece about why Africa should really pay attention to what's going on there. And by the way, tomorrow, if today is 10 days for me, tomorrow is 100 days for, you know what?
What?
No load shedding.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Listen, the dancing minister can continue dancing for as long as we have electricity.
There we are.
I was skeptical at the beginning at his appointment, like most people were. But you got to give credit where credit is due. So if it's working, it's working.
I do think Eskom has a formidable leadership.
Yeah.
The
current one.
chairs, great board. And I've given the example before. When you have a football team and you mess up and you get a new coach, it takes 3 years they give him a 3-year target to get a winning team. So how do you give a new board like 3 months or 4 months or a new minister? You've got to give them, in fact, you should give them 3 years, but I know that's not possible.
We don't have it in us.
Yeah.
It's been 16 years. Funny that, and I'm sure Tumi will touch on this, you use football as an analogy, the developments coming out of Sundowns yesterday with Coach Rulani. Oh my goodness. I'm not a soccer person, but...
Guys called in the morning show on Sunrise to say, he only won the league. That's not good enough. Like, okay.
After that entire
and he only won it twice
streak.
in a row. That's also not good enough.
Wow, guys.
Okay. You don't know what you have. That's all I can tell you.
Right? But I'm sure on the sports updates with Dumi, they'll cover that, of course, on the National Pulse. Let's take a quick pause and then we come back and we wrap it up.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. You are listening to The Full Circle.
We are wrapping up, our side of the programming today with a little bit of a feel-good note. We did say at the beginning, just to give you a bit of a break from serious matters. This is what we like to do on this particular show. We've got Thulani Mlambo, who is the founder of Naile Acha, joining us now. And you guys have just come back from an international food exhibition in New York. Who would have thought that Acha would take you to such incredible places? How are you doing, Thulani?
I'm good and you, Z.
I'm great, thank you. Okay, let's talk about this international food exhibition in New York that you've just come back from, exhibiting Naile Acha, amongst other products. How was that?
It was such a groundbreaking experience. Food Bev CETA was running a program where it was selecting 5 entrepreneurs out of South Africa that are to showcase different products. So I was actually one of the 5 entrepreneurs that was actually chosen to showcase my brand. So like my company name is called, Local to Global Foods. I actually took my product from local to global, and it had to be an acha pate. Yeah.
I'm here for it. We were looking, we went on your digital platform, and we were just looking at the presentation of your product, right? Because especially if you're African, acha for us is that thing you grow up, it gets made in the kitchen. Some people make it better than other people. There's always the auntie that's like the acha connoisseur. But
that's correct.
We don't take it that seriously from the perspective of presenting it as a premium food. Just by looking at your digital platform, this is exactly how you've approached it.
Yeah, so what inspired the company and why we actually started the Naile Acha pate in particular was we looked at the scope that there's not enough South African products in the global sphere. You get biltong, you get chutney, you get certain hot sauces. But nothing that was fully authentic that was actually South African. I mean, acha, yes, in its origin, it doesn't come from South Africa. It comes from India. But we've adapted it in South Africa. It's part of our big staple of our diet. So that's what we actually looked at. So look, what is it that one particular product loads? And acha came to mind. But it wasn't packaged for the global world. We thought, okay, let's, innovate it. Let's package it differently, put flavors to it. It comes in 7 different flavors, from a picante, jalapeno, to a rosemary and olive for beef and lamb dishes, to a lemon and black pepper for fish and chicken dishes, feta, so that you have a multi-purpose tool, condiment that you can cook with it, marinate with it, have a snack on a cheese board. So that's what actually inspired it. And through Food Bev CETA, we actually across to New York.
I love everything you're saying, and I think we had a conversation. Was it last year for Heritage Day? And we were speaking to a professor whose focus is around food and its cultural impact and imprint on societies, right? And the understanding that food codes so much of our cultures as people, but also food being this constant evolving experience. So an acha, as you say, that originates in India, but has found equal expression within the context of South Africa and its people, and now is fully understood, from a SADC perspective, that we claim it. It's ours.
It's ours.
It's ours, definitely. And you can't tell us otherwise.
No, we connoisseurs when it comes to it.
Right? And then here you are taking it one step further with your company and presenting it and evolving it once again so that the rest of the world can find themselves in it.
Most definitely. And I think it was everything that was deliberate in our approach. That's why we made it in the pate. One distinctive factor is that we didn't use the South African spelling of acha, but we used the international one, so that a global audience person would fully understand or know the international spelling of acha. And if you're a global trotter, you know what a pate is. You know, it's a gourmet product that you would actually. So that already, when you compass the two narratives, it made it possible that, you know, whether you're an Asian, you're a Mediterranean, you're Italian, you know, the flavors would resonate with you, and which was a huge surprise that, you know, they didn't know what acha is, but because, you know, we packaged it differently, the flavors, you know, complements what they know on their palate, and it did resonate very well with them.
You know what I didn't ask you, Thulani, is whether or not you actually come from a culinary background.
Funny enough, not.
I figured so.
I don't even cook at home. So this was a true, pure love of passion and food, and just flavors. And I managed to put this together.
You know what I always love about people who come from completely different industries and then follow their passions and find their feet and comfortability in a different space, in a different way, is that it also shows that humans are not one-dimensional, and that whatever you've sort of acquired by way of skill and knowledge from a completely different space and sector, you can then bring into your passion, and 9 out of 10 times that sort of leads you steps ahead of others.
Most definitely. And I think that is the true you know, outcome of this experience, that, you know, you dream it, you think it, and, you know, as long as you're an entrepreneur, you want a different change, you want to do something different in your space, you can actually do it. And I think I'm a true testament of that.
Yeah. Talk to us about the business of business. It is a cutthroat industry. It demands a lot. You know, and oftentimes when entrepreneurs are setting up, they're met with a lot of obstacles and challenges. And I wonder if you faced any along the way, and how do you get around those?
Most definitely. You know, food product, I think from my inception, I remember meeting a lady saying to me, look, you know, food it's interesting that she found that me going into food, and she said to me, it takes a very long time, and it costs a lot of money, and if you're gonna do it well, you know, you got to be patient with it, you got to take your time, and I think because the market in the food space is not really geared up for startups, so you're gonna find a lot of challenges and obstacles. From your packaging, the number of quantities, let's say, of your ingredients that you order, it's never going to be for a startup. So there's a lot of capital outlay that you got to put in. Your production space where you actually produce, just getting a COA, which is a certificate of acceptability, where you produce, you know, the equipment that you got to purchase. It is really, really, really quite a daunting a task to put together.
And by way of resources, perhaps at those infant stages?
Most definitely. Obviously, it was for me. It started me alone, and then obviously I introduced and brought my wife into the picture, and then a few more family members who came on board to start assisting as the business was growing. So you do really need people, but as long as you're driven by passion, you should find a way to navigate it through.
Let's talk about this essentially being a family business, because sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. How do you get that right?
Well, because this was not my first business that I've actually a business venture, it actually allowed me to tap into previous lessons learned, what works, how do you navigate challenges with family, how do you become stern, share what you really want from family to assist. And I think I'm very fortunate that I come from a very supportive family.
Yeah.
And they were there every step of the way.
Yeah. Listen, it's always wonderful and refreshing to hear a success story coming out of a South African entrepreneur. And I guess from here onwards, the world is your oyster.
Most definitely. I think it's been a beautiful journey. And I always say, as soon as I hit New York, it was, very alarming to say, what you think and put into to your mind to it, you can achieve it. That I called my company Local to Global Foods, and I managed to develop brand from scratch, repackage it for the global world, and there I am, getting it people to taste it across the world, and to try and get import and export the product.
We'll be watching you with bated breath. Those of us who are opportunistic and looking for that gateway to invest in Local to Global Foods, we'll definitely be keeping a keen eye on you. Thulani, thank you so much for the time. That was Thulani Mlambo, and of course he is the founder of Local to Global Foods, and that product Naile Acha finding its way to New York and of course international markets. And you can go online. They do have a digital platform, so you can go online and go place your order and have a look at the different flavor profiles that they've got in that catalog and place your order if you can't find them at a stockist near you, so that you can also you can also support and grow a locally founded business. That is how we say goodbye. We wrap things up today on our side. How quickly the week has gone. Tomorrow is Friday. Can you believe it? Tomorrow is Friday, and hopefully we're going to have a good show tomorrow. Friday, we like to focus on arts and culture around these parts, like fully immerse ourselves in arts and culture more than we do during the course of the week. And so tomorrow is no different. We are live on social media, so the conversation does continue there. If you just want to say hello, you can also find me on X as well as Instagram at Bridget Masinga. Otherwise, we'll see each other tomorrow. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
If we have rights, shouldn't we also have opinions? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mwekezi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mwekezi.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Stay tuned to SAFM coming up.